like somebody said last time. Or the score, not the game, but the score. Some of you are wondering what game. Oh, it took care of that? Ah, that way. I thought you were answering to the question of today's game and you said West Indies took care of that game also. Anyways, so you're able to see, you're able to feel, were you able to feel the coldness of the room, that everybody was feeling introvert? So the entire perception that happens, it happens without the layer of the ego, the doership, or the enjoyership. It is just pure observation or pure perception that is happening. Of that which is being perceived, a very small fraction of it is what we relate to as relevant and make a pattern of habit. Do you know per second how much data we perceive and receive into the system of mind and intellect? Irrespective of how blunt the equipment is, there is a basic data plan, and that is what I'm asking. Per second. We receive approximately about 4 gigs of information per second. Just to give you an idea as to how much is 4 gigabytes, it's about 1000 average songs, meaning the average length, average whatever consumption of data. 1000 songs you can cram up in that 4 minutes. No, sorry, 4 gigs. That much we receive in per second. Now imagine per the entire day, entire waking hour, how much of data is being going in. Of that, very fraction, small fraction of it is what becomes relevant. And of that relevance, we create patterns. Who is that who is creating those patterns of habits? That is the ego. And what is the pattern why is it that it is creating the pattern? Of this much of data information that is going in, there is a very fraction, tiny fraction of it is becoming relevant, and that relevant is being put under probably 2 categories. Predominantly 2 categories. That which I like and that which I don't like. That which I like, I put it under the category of good. That which I don't like, I put it under the category of bad. We love branding. So many times in the 60 seconds of a minute, there are many seconds worth data which is not even relevant. We are unconscious of the data that is going in, that we are not even bothered about. Can you imagine how much intense the system is working? So it's about how many gigs per minute? 2.4? 240 gigs. Wow. That much of information is being gathered. Now, what is amazing is it is equal amount of data that is being churned up in 1 second of a dream too. Though it is being churned internally, nothing from the external stimulus, it is equal amount of data which is being churned up. Thank goodness that Bhagavan has created a dynamic memory system that can consume all this data and have still room for more. How many of you have terabytes of backup at home? Wow. Besides that, how many of you have a cloud account? Almost everybody? Very good. Apart from that, how many of you have a server or some kind of a thing that back at home? Whoa. Okay. And is it constantly being increased? The memory? Now, can you imagine the ingenious memory that Bhagavan has created up here? As we grow old, it is not that the memory is lost. Memory is never lost. The nerve connections to those memory is being lost. The memory is still there. Of that memory that is being saved, relevant memory is very, very small, tiny portion. And in that we create patterns, cycles, habits. And we live by these habits. However, upside down our life, we are conditioned by our own patterns. Various kinds of patterns too. And if you look at all these patterns, aren't they based out of our own likes and dislikes? And we live slaves to our own patterns, and we expect others around also to appreciate those patterns. And we try smearing the outside world of our immediate to not just appreciate but also follow. When I sit down for counseling at different age groups, the oldest to the youngest, most of the strife or most of the friction, where does it occur? What? Most of the friction is with the older age group, but where is the friction in this older age group? It is in these patterns that we have developed, not ready to let go or not ready to allow others not accept our pattern. My pattern versus your pattern. And what is the ego satisfaction? I made the other person follow my pattern. Big deal, man. Hitler also tried to put everybody in a pattern. Little did he realize that his kind of people are also in a certain pattern. What is realization, or what is it that we call as spirituality in Hinduism? To transcend all these pattern systems, all these conditioning systems. 95% of the system is already in an amazing pattern of selfless existence. Indriyani indriyarthebhyah. And they perform their karma yoga to the dot. Have you ever seen any organ of perception transcending and going beyond that which it is destined for? What it means is, have you ever tried tasting with your nose or eye? Simple. Like your wife is cooking and says, "Yeah, taste karo." And what happened? I put it in my eye. Give some dokla and taste for namak or something. No, you never. Do you taste it with your nose? Yes. No, you smell through the nose. There are certain very refined noses that can assess the taste through the nose. Very refined, very rare few that can smell and tell how much sugar is in the tea, that can smell and tell how much spice is in the whatever. Very rare few. One has to have a very refined system, and such people are. I mean, it's a niche field of job. I knew a person. She used to work for the Lay's, Frito Lay's, and all that she had to do was smell the chips. And you may think, oh, that's also a job. No, and her nose was insured for 25 million. A niche field that was carved out. There are tasters, there are smellers, and these smellers are also in the field of wine and coffee, tea. But the point is, each one is ordained to that particular field. The ears are specifically for. Then I was bored eating through my mouth. No, it's not going to work that way. I thought Amras, I'll have a different twist to it. Doesn't it sound ridiculous? Yes, no? No, we keep trying it often. Then that would be a shock. Each one perform their meticulous job. And does each organ perform its job to its whatever it was meant for? Does it do a good job? Yes, no? Mind is also an awesome equipment. It sieves through all this information and pulls out all that which is relevant. Based on different filters that we provide to that mind. Like in YouTube, how many videos would be there uploaded? Infinite. Right? There's no point giving a number to it. Infinite. And added. In that, if you want to find a specific video, what do you do? What do you mean by search? The key word. Sometimes you are searching with some vagueness, and your child comes and says, what do you want? And you try explaining it to them, and they change the entire parameter because the filter that they're using, the keywords that they're using are refined ones. And what comes out? Alright, this is exactly the video that I wanted to see. And you have that video right there. Similarly, the mind we have developed over a period of time different filter systems of taglines, tag words, to have the ability to use those filters and taglines so that I can get a refined experience is intelligent way of living. To exist to the predisposed conditioning of this mind with its taglines, because I cannot change my mind, that state of helplessness is a pathetic existence. Whose mind is it? Not your neighbors, right? Not your spouses, not your child's. It's my own mind. And if I can't mind my own mind, even after these many years of living with this system, that is what spirituality calls as being a slave to. Many of us, let alone about being having the ability to mind the mind, do not even have the scope to view the mind and its patterns. We are running and running in loops constantly. And if paused and asked, why are you running? बाकी सब दौड़ रहे हैं. Everybody else is running. I am also running. The smile at this moment that everybody is giving, ऐसा कौन होगा स्वामी जी? Seriously, who will be such kind of a foolish run? Have you heard of this amazing equipment called a mirror? Many times we don't even realize that we are caught up in it. To pause, to question, why am I doing it? And in all brutal truth, in its nakedness, we do step back and question that which should be given some benefit of doubt. We question those things. And not that our teenager or teenagehood has gone away. We have just learned how to camouflage it. Who is a teenager? They are armed with the intelligence of two questions. Only two questions. You tell them to do something. Why? You tell them not to do something. Why not? When spirituality is introduced and the spiritual scriptures ask us to do something, what do we ask? When the spiritual book says, do not indulge in these kinds of activities, what do we say? Case in point, my lord. What are we? Addicted to teenagehood, camouflaged as adulthood. Armed with the intelligence of two questions. And we think we can beat the odds of spirituality. Do puja. Why? Is God not there everywhere? Why should I specifically worship in this place? Wow. See, I asked him. And the questions are asked not to even get a clarity, to stump the scriptures, to stump the one who is speaking on the scriptures. बोल के दिखा अब. Try. I caught you. And when people ask questions, it can be very clearly seen the motives, the intentions. It's not even for the answer. Earlier, when I was naive, I would like butt heads with anybody asking question. Try to give that clarity, the intensity with which I would dive in. Now, ओ पहले पढ़ के आजा. Why did Rama do this? I said, where did you get this information? Amar Chitra Katha. Read something more creative about Rama and then come. So when you don't put the effort to even substantiate the question and expect everybody in the world to say, nobody answers. Hinduism is vague. What effort did you put? And any effort that Hindu scripture is trying to tell, do this or don't, what are we armed with? The most intelligent, seemingly intelligent questions. Why? Why not? You cannot substantiate the entire life based on these two questions. To understand, हाँ जी पूछिए.
Having found myself several times on those butt-head type situations, the question is with various people trying to ask, and you are on the receiving end where you're saying why or why not, or trying to justify on the Hinduism side or why you do this and don't. One of the constant refrain I've heard is the question why is how science has progressed, the scientific temper. So any thought from you about the inappropriateness of why in the context of spirituality?
See, in science, more than why or why not, the question that brings answers that really matters is how. What has been pursued by all these scientists is how. How does this function? How does this move? How does this, churn various possibilities? That how is the critical mass of question, not the why. And even in that field of science, when you look at it from like somebody who said, oh, science has evolved that they can make this from scratch. So this person, he says, well, if you claim that you're making this from scratch, then first you'll have to invent the process of creation. We have the raw materials. And even in science, what baffles them is the question why, wherein why is it that we have this creation? Nobody has an answer. In that which has already been provided for, how these things function, act, react, respond to each other, that is being evaluated. That is where there are answers. Why is not and for any matter, not just science, even in life and happenings, when something very troubling happens, and many of us go, why is this happening to me? Really speaking, you step back and ask yourself, anybody giving any answer to that why, is it justified? Why is this happening? No, this is happening. How can I improve upon it? How is it happening? That I can understand. Okay, that is first. And whenever people talk of science and try to draw parallels to spiritual unfoldment, I say that the amount of Shraddha or Vishwasa that you have given to science, you don't even give a granular percentage of that to the spiritual field or unfoldment. And we say that I am a scientific person, I don't, what is it? Blind belief is not my way of life. Seriously? Really? So you mean to say that you are not on a trust or a faith system in science? So my simple questions that I ask is, how many of you have seen an atom? शुरुआत वहां से करते हैं. Let's start from there. How many of you have seen an atom? Anybody here who has studied less than undergrad? मैं 12वीं पास हूं, अंगूठा छाप. So anybody less than undergrad? No. Anybody less than masters? Very few. बहुत पढ़े लिखे हो. You have studied too much. And how many of you are in the field of, have gone through the field of science? Almost everybody. Okay, fine. How many of you have seen an atom? And what is the logic that I get? But Swamiji, in the field of science, these are proven. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Therefore, on the proof of what they have given, I build forward. So what are the rishis trying to say? That is their experience that they have experimented and found. Based on that, now you build forward. We don't even give that granular Shraddha that we have given to science. And without that Shraddha, we would not have progressed so much in science. Fair enough, a deal of argument. Anybody has an objection with this, my presentation of argument so far? Your time, you can say so. If you have objections, we'll deal with it. That is exactly what I'm saying. Even your science, it is blind. Where did you see an atom? Let alone see about the electron or the positron or the whatever other subatomic particles. Have you? If you have, I'll give it to you. Have you ever seen? But we propose and we vehemently argue, there is an atom. What is the basis? Have you had a personal experience? Seeing is believing. Where did you see the atom? Isn't it blind? So is it that different that what the spiritual field is also asking you to start with? The same amount of fairness that you give to science to evolve and understand, you don't even give that much of scope to spirituality to be able to understand spirituality. With that blindness, with that, not blindness, with that shut off mindset, how much ever somebody wants to crack open that mindset, it is impossible to get through. Earlier, there was a situation, a generation ahead of us, where there were nobody who would give us answers. Today's generation, there are people who are ready to give answers, but our mindsets are not open with that Shraddha. And still blame spirituality for having no answers, no clarity. Especially so Hinduism. Because the other religions will beat the living daylights out of you by scaring the. If you don't, Hinduism does not do that. Gives you that scope to evolve and understand. Therefore, there is a generic recklessness towards that, callousness towards it. And the callousness and recklessness is still fine. Conclusions born out of those callousness and recklessness saying Hinduism does not have any generic guidelines. You can do whatever and call yourself as Hindu. That is where we have come up to. Kuch bhi kar lo yaar, you are Hindu. Because Hinduism does not give you any strict guidelines. You can bend it, beat it, scrap it, throw it away, and still call yourself as a Hindu. That doesn't seem justified when you compare it with science and religion. Am I making a fair point? Yes, you had. See, superstitions also. There are certain parts of life which are called superstitions. Many of these superstitions, at an age when we do not understand the logic, it can be explained only through certain processes, either through bhaya or through logic of understanding. When logic of understanding is not mature, then how do you? I remember that I was whacked by my own father because I was what, 6, 7 years old, and every time I would come back from school or games or sports, my shoes, like they would go on. And my grandmother would always say that if your shoes are upside down, I'm sure many of you would remember. What is it told? If your shoes are upside down, yeah. What I was told was you will have stomachache. So one day, when this was given enough number of times, when I was 6 years old, there was Satyanaran Katha in at home. When everybody was busy listening to the Katha, where was I busy? Turning everybody who had come to do a mass experiment to turn their shoes upside down and see how many people will get stomachache. No, I was not being sadistic, I was just trying to find the statistics. And that is why my dad whacked me that day. How dare you don't participate in the puja and you waste your time like this? So since then my grandmother understood this fellow will take too literally the things. Now I have to start explaining things to him. Up until that time there is that, you give that bhaya, but not understanding that that which is used to get things rightly done through bhaya becomes the way of life, then it becomes superstition. And the same grandmother once had told me, I remember very narratively she had described that how does the rains fall. She had this beautiful narration of the story that there is this Indra in Indraloka. He has a white elephant, and it is not a figure of speech, it is literally a white elephant, and it's a naughty one, goes into these bushes and into the mud and other things, becomes dirty. And since then I stopped running into the rain. I loved running into the rain and getting wet. But that day when she explained that it is this Airavata that is cleaning its own body, said, I don't want that dirty water. Because Indraloka is up there and that Airavata, whenever takes a shower, that water falls down. That is what she explained. Now you try explaining this to a 12th grader, this same pattern. It's a story created to give a vivid imagination to someone. Did it serve the purpose at that age? Yes, it did. Okay, let me ask another. A simple mathematical equation, a mathematical question, it's not even equation. 2 plus 2 equals. Everybody agrees? Yes, no? When you go to the pure mathematics, in real number analysis, there is no such equation called 2 plus 2. Because both are arbitrary and there is no number defined as 2. 0 to 1, we say that it is 1, but 1 is actually infinite. Why? Can't you break 0 to 1 into millions of fractions, infinite number of fractions? So what happened to that 1? The 1 is an arbitrary number. Our whole mathematics goes topsy-turvy when you go into mathematics, real number analysis. I'm not even going into the pure math application, real number analysis. So from that standpoint, when you look at this mathematics, what is it? Superstition. Okay, now I'm taking superstition to the next level. One is bhaya, the second one is at a vyavahara level, there are certain principles that have to be followed, which from at a subtler level, when you look at and compare, are meaningless. But they have to be applied at that level. Just because you have grown, you cannot ridicule that. It would be like somebody who has done with their food. In India, we used to eat in leaves. After you have had food, you throw away. And somebody who is still standing in the line to get his food, and say, "Yet anyway, throw it now." No, it has a purpose. That vyavahara has to be done, and once you're done with that vyavahara, then you can get rid of it. Otherwise, it will be the same logic as the children say. I have to come back and get into the bed. In between, when I am not there, why should I make the bed for? For whom? Do your children give that logic? I know as a child I had given the same logic. I can understand if I have to make the bed when I am there. Saturdays and Sundays I'll make the bed because I am there. Rest of the days don't push me because there's no point. I have to come back and again rip it up and then get into it. For that, why should I make? But there is a purpose, there is a meaning for it, and then we still apply it. And just because from a higher standpoint this seems ridiculous, I cannot call this as a superstition. Last is, just because I do not understand something today, to brand it and to categorize it as superstition would not be right either. The various patterns that, and about, I should say, the ancient people, the processes that they have evolved. Where was this? I know I had argued with my mom when we say Shuklam Bharadaram, in South India we do this. Right? South Indians. Huh. You're like looking at it. No, we don't. What are you talking about? And I used to argue with my parents saying, what stupid thing this is. Recently somebody from Harvard or MIT, they said that this increases your brain power. Everybody starts doing it, and with the crisscross holding of your ear and then doing it increases your brain power. Suddenly this has a different meaning to it. Now the research says that the water carries not just it carries the impression of the one who is holding that water. The intention and the strength of it is carried through that water. So now the mantra jala, the water which is sanctified at an altar, has a different meaning to it. So when you look at it, I think about 85-90% of what we are following has deep meaning to it. And just because I do not recognize it, should I throw the child along with the bathwaters? Rather, I would suggest, instead of investigating into these from a possibility of negation, can we look with the Shraddha, which is the first step, that why was this practiced by our ancient people? What could have been the reason? Try to find the reasons and it speaks to you. And to tell you a fact, if you want to find a flaw in something, can't we find a flaw? In the best of the situations, can't we find a flaw? I mean, we are experts at it, at finding flaw. But that Shraddha is the one which enables us to see as to what might be the reason. Then evaluate it. That self-enquiry is completely gone. And in between, before all these things settle in, there is comfort and convenience. Both have made us complacent. Comfort and convenience, complacency has set in. And to move anybody from that complacency, it creates a lot of friction. And when somebody asks a question about our systems, and when I do not have clarity about it, and I'm already settled in with my comforts and conveniences in my complacency, a generic answer that goes out is, I am born Hindu, but I don't practice it. I am also ashamed of all those things. The easy answer, to feel good and trash the entire custom, tradition, and practices. This is the what do you call, nutshell analysis of our today's generation's mindset towards our own practices. Therefore, it becomes that important to catch them young and to explain it to them. And many of you, when you take these children back to India, who knows more about Hinduism, who knows more about the scriptures or the stories or the mantras or the shlokas or the bhajans? What? The non-required Indian kids, no more NRI kids. And it is their counterpart back in India who have, they are all qualified for the third series of the movie called Clueless. And they are wondering, but I thought you lived in USA, you chant all these things? Yo man, you should be different. What is this chudidar? What is this kurta pajama? Change. Shorts that should be dragging below your waist level, revealing your undergarments. I was in India recently and somebody like this said, जब तक ऊपर नहीं गया ना, ऐसे मारूंगा कि नानी आ जाएगी ऊपर कर. Aping becomes the coolness factor. And the reason I insist that the parents also should be a part of it, because the children learn, and the confusion comes between the children's understanding and the parents' practices. As simple as I was in 8th or ninth grade, and I was trying to explain that a birthday, how it has to be celebrated. That you go to the temple, you take a early morning shower, a head bath, abhyanga snana, and then go to the temple, get blessings, and then do some seva or something, and then it is not about getting, it's more about giving and seeking blessings. So this kid goes, but my father, when he celebrated recently his 40th, there was there was liquor, there was this, there was this. And the child is seeing something, whereas the child is being told something else. Now, how did I come to know of it? He just mentioned it, and then he went and argued with his parents. Now that father comes all red and angry with me. What are you trying to teach in Chinmaya Mission? To create confusion in family? Why would I do that? I mean, if you lack values and it is creating a trouble, it is not mine. You have a misconception that these things are not to be. No, wait a second. Do you come regularly to Sunday classes? No. Just start coming. Do you see the discrepancy? At various levels. I just took one sample of example. So think about it. Om Shant Shant Shanti Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah.